The year was 378 AD, and the Roman Empire was already tired. It was vast, powerful, and proud, but cracks were showing everywhere. The borders were under pressure, the army was stretched thin, and politics in the capital felt far removed from the dangers at the front. Few people alive then could imagine that one single battle would shake Rome so deeply that history would never be the same again. Along the Danube River, a new threat was growing. The Goths, a collection of tribes fleeing from something far more terrifying than Rome, were on the move. From the distant east came the Huns, ruthless horsemen who burned villages and slaughtered entire communities. Terrified, the Goths begged Rome for refuge. They were not asking to conquer the empire, they were asking to survive. Rome agreed, but greed ruined everything. Roman officials charged the Goths outrageous prices for food. Families sold their children into slavery just to eat. Hunger turned into anger, and anger turned into rebellion. What began as a refugee crisis slowly became a full-scale war. Emperor Valens ruled the Eastern Roman Empire at the time. He was not a foolish man, but he was proud and impatient. When news reached him that the Goths had risen in arms, he saw a chance for glory. A quick victory would silence critics and secure his legacy as a strong emperor. Valens marched his army toward the city of Adrianople in modern-day Turkey. The Roman force was large, disciplined, and confident. These were professional soldiers, trained for years, carrying the weight of centuries of military tradition. They believed no barbarian force could stand against them. The Goths, led by a chieftain named Fritigern, were camped nearby. They were warriors, but also families, wagons, and refugees. Their strength lay in their numbers, their desperation, and their fierce cavalry, which was not fully present at the start. Fritigern knew he was not ready for battle. He sent messengers to Valens asking for peace talks. He was buying time, hoping his cavalry would return. Valens, however, suspected trickery and believed he could win easily. He ignored the warnings of his officers and chose to fight without waiting for reinforcements. On the morning of August 9, 378 AD, the Roman army marched under a burning sun. The heat was brutal. Soldiers were exhausted before the battle even began. Dust filled the air as thousands of boots crushed the dry ground. When the Romans approached the Gothic camp, chaos broke out. Negotiations failed, possibly because of misunderstandings or nervous soldiers. Suddenly, fighting erupted without clear orders. The Roman lines were not fully formed, and confusion spread quickly. The Goths held their defensive position, using their wagons as a barricade. Roman infantry attacked again and again, but coordination was poor. Units became separated, and commanders lost control of their men. What was supposed to be a clean battle was turning into a mess. Then, everything changed. In the distance, dust clouds appeared. The Gothic cavalry had returned. Thousands of mounted warriors crashed into Roman flanks like a storm. Roman soldiers, already tired and disorganized, were caught completely off guard. The cavalry cut through Roman lines with terrifying speed. Encirclement followed. Soldiers could not retreat. They could not regroup. They could barely breathe. Men were crushed together, unable to raise their shields or swing their swords. Roman discipline, once the envy of the world, collapsed under the pressure. Panic spread faster than orders. Veterans fought bravely, but bravery was not enough. One unit after another was wiped out where it stood. Emperor Valens was somewhere in the chaos. No one knows exactly how he died. Some say he was struck down by arrows. Others say he took shelter in a farmhouse that was later burned to the ground. His body was never found. An emperor of Rome vanished into smoke and blood. By the end of the day, the Roman army was destroyed. 2/3 of Valens' force lay dead on the field. Generals, officers, and elite troops were gone. It was one of the worst defeats Rome had suffered since ancient times. The Goths had not just won a battle, they had shattered the myth of Roman invincibility.
For centuries, Rome had defeated enemies through discipline and organization. At Adrianople, those strengths failed completely. News of the disaster spread quickly. Across the empire, fear took hold. If a Roman emperor could die on the battlefield, then no border was truly safe. No city was untouchable anymore. The aftermath was grim. Rome struggled to rebuild its eastern army. Recruitment became harder. Trust in leadership weakened. The empire would survive, but it would never again be the same confident power it once was. Adrianople also changed warfare. Cavalry proved its dominance over heavy infantry. The old Roman way of fighting was becoming outdated in a changing world. Enemies were faster, more flexible, and less predictable. The Goths eventually settled within Roman territory, not as subjects, but as a people Rome had to negotiate with. The balance of power had shifted forever. Historians often mark the Battle of Adrianople as the beginning of the end for the Western Roman Empire. The fall would still take decades, but the damage had been done. The illusion of control was gone. What makes Adrianople so haunting is not just the death toll, but the mistakes. Pride, poor leadership, and underestimating an enemy turned a manageable conflict into a catastrophe. It's a reminder that even the greatest powers can fall when they ignore reality. Strength without wisdom is fragile. Order without justice breeds rebellion. On that dusty field near Adrianople, Rome learned a lesson written in blood. Romes do not collapse overnight. They collapse when they stop listening, stop adapting, and stop respecting the forces around them. The Battle of Adrianople was not just a defeat, it was a warning to history, echoing across centuries, telling us that no power, no matter how mighty, is immune to its own mistakes. And with that, we come to the end of today's story. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's most devastating battles, stay curious, keep learning, and join me again for another journey into the past. Until next time, take care, and thanks for listening.